Welcome, people of the World Wide Web. So it's Cypher Sigma here, and it's another movie review, and it is for the new movie Eddington. So I didn't know much about this movie. It is obviously released in 2025 of August. It is rated 15 in the UK. It is 2 hours and 28 minutes long, and it has nothing after the credits. It stars an all-star cast of Joaquin Phoenix as Joe Cross, the sheriff, Emma Stone as Louise Cross's wife, Deborah O'Connell as Dawn, Emma Stone's mum, who is living with them. Then you have Joaquin Phoenix's character has two deputies as Michael Ward playing Michael Cook, and Luke Grimes as Guy Tooley. You then have Pedro Pascal. Yes, Pedro Pascal turns up again. This is, I think, at the 4 or 5 movies I've watched recently at the cinema. Fantastic Four, material lists, and now Eddington. Pedro Pascal's been in all of it. He's only got a bit part in this, so, and I didn't mind him. He plays Ted Garcia, who's running for re-election as the mayor. You have Matt Gomez Hadako as Eric Garcia, his son. We have Cameron Morn as Brian Faraz, who is Eric's friend, and then you have a small bit part by Austin Butler as Vernon Jefferson. And people who do not know, and I didn't know, is going, essentially this is 2020 in a little town in America where essentially the coming of masks and COVID is quite ripe, and this is kind of a factor. And the mayor and the sheriff come to odds, and the sheriff basically decides to run for mayor, and then stuff kind of spirals very much out of control due to many different factors. So let's put the spoiler warning up and let's get into it. So yes, as I said, this kind of movie starts as it's late 2020, I think May or that. Masks have just come in, and you have the sheriff in his car on Native American lands, because where he lives, that neighbours, you have another car turns up with Native Americans, and they basically say you need to have your mask on. He says he doesn't feel. There's a very confrontation. He goes off, and then you have him go in. He puts his mask on as a response to these people, and then he gets a call back to the mayor that there's a dispute outside of the pub that they're in. So he drives up to it, and he sees the mayor is inside talking to all the people in masks, and obviously this is classed as a board meeting. And then there is a very drunk homeless man who you see at the very beginning. He has wandered into the town and trying to be disturbed. They won't let him in because obviously he's drunk and violent, and he isn't wearing a mask. Same as the sheriff doesn't want to wear a mask. The sheriff kind of the bloke manages to barge in. The sheriff tries to get him. The bloke breathes all over him, pushes him to the ground, and then kind of runs away. Everybody's a bit like, what are you doing? You can see there's a bit of a nod between the mayor and the sheriff. Then this rolls on to the next day, or the sheriff goes home, and you get to see his wife, Emma Stone. They have the mother-in-law stay with them due to COVID reasons. And you can see there's obviously Emma Stone's character has a lot of issues. Her mum is one of these fanatic theorists, everything that you read on the internet, blah, blah, blah. And they're kind of into this Vernon Jefferson character who kind of spiritually kind of looks like a cult leader type person. That's a sub-story that goes on. But anyway, the sheriff goes back to work the next day. As he's going to work, he goes to buy some drugs for his wife. Obviously, people lining up to go into the shop, and they're wearing masks. But this old guy who has breathing issues and stuff, and that he doesn't want to put on the mask. The store rejects him. The sheriff says, let him in. They do let him in. Then the sheriff walks in without his mask on and gets to sleep. And that's when he then has another confrontation with the mayor. And the mayor's like, you have to put on a mask and stuff like that. He says, no, it's not law. This is the law needs to be done by the council and everything else, or and the kind of confrontation. And he ends up leaving, buying the stuff, because the other guy who went in, he gets kicked out, and then basically the sheriff almost gets kicked out, but the sheriff decides to buy it. The person who was in their stuff gives it to him, and he's like, oh, that's great, takes a picture and puts it on social media. Then the sheriff comes up with the idea, screw it, I'm going to run against this person for mayor. And then he puts this video out. This is when he comes home, and his wife is very distraught, doesn't want to talk to him. They're at odds. And then he's like, oh, please listen to me, and stuff like this. And then it kind of culminates to a point of they will have a dinner the next evening. At this point, he then gets his deputies to basically help him out. He comes up with this Planned to run for mayor, and this is kind of where the story essentially goes for most of it. In between this, you had the mayor's son, who obviously is not listening to the mayor. He goes out with his friend. His friend is interested in this girl, but his mate obviously is more able to convince her, and kind of gets with her just to kind of spite his friend, which is no good. But this girl is also linked with one of the deputies, even though there's quite age gap, and they like to kind of create rallies, and this is where it's going. This is when you come into the subject. Black Lives Matter come up. This is what the protests are about, and people are protesting in the town about Black Lives Matter and stuff like this. Comes up to an event with Joaquin Phoenix, and Joaquin Phoenix is like, you're trying to do his best, but obviously all these people are hammering at him. One of his deputies is a man of color, and even he says that, like, how can, because the whole real life of Black Lives Matter and stuff. But I get it, there's obviously unrest and free speech and everything like that. Fast forward a little bit to the point where the sheriff turns up to the mayor's residence because he's having a party. And he's playing loud music, and then he ends up getting slapped by the mayor several times. He goes away. Later that night, comes back with a sniper rifle, shoots the mayor's son, gets rid of most of the evidence. Actually, this happens just before this event. After he gets slapped, he sees the homeless bloke who's broken back into the bar. He ends up shooting him, killing him, dumping the body, and this kind of is the trigger that then takes him to kill the mayor and stuff like this. Next thing you know, he is then there is a police investigation. The Indian police, because it's a joint registration, they start to have theories. They kind of believe it's him, as he kind of is trying to cover his books. His wife ends up leaving him because he put something on social media about her. I won't go into the details of this. She counter says that as well. Ends up spiraling that he's then kind of the mayor, but then he gets attacked by two masked surveillance. All hell goes loose. Machine guns are going. People are getting killed left, right, and centre, until at the final end, the sheriff gets stabbed in the head, and then the young lad who his friends was getting with the girl he liked, he ends up turning up to the scene and managing to save his life by killing the assailant. It then kind of goes to what happens after this, and then you have the young lad. You have his social media that he kind of lives a better life. Joaquin Phoenix manages to survive because he also gets COVID during this, due to many reasons that you understand later on. But then, because the injury, he's in a vegetative state, and his mother-in-law, who's still kept with him because his wife left for this, and was got pregnant by this hippie cult leader. She then kind of dictates what's going on, and the old mayor had this deal about this new building and stuff like this, and it brings loads of money, so she's got this wealthy house, and then kind of it ends really, really weirdly. But then she goes back to their big house where she's obviously staying with the mayor because he's incapacitated. Their helper kind of helps him in, then they put him to bed. The mother-in-law gets into bed with them, and then the helper also gets into them. Really weird dynamic, and that's where it ends. There's nothing after the trailers you don't see. What did I think of this movie? I'm always try to be positive, and I'm saying, if you watch a trailer and this might be your sort of movie, then go and watch it. To me, it's one I'm never going to revisit again. I had it 4.5 out of 10. It's kind of 2.5 hours I will not get back. There was, from what I've read and understanding, the director did have this idea of this kind of movie. I think bringing in COVID, Black Lives Matter, then there are about rapists and people being raped, and you have this kind of cult leader coming in. All these elements, there's so much busy going on, so much that go against it, and so much seems silly. Like the first start off, and it's all about COVID and keeping your distance, and the mayor and the sheriff is the only person that does it. And literally, apart from the 2 points when he takes off his mask, everyone else is following the guidelines. Then after that, in the movie, no one else keeps to it. There's parties with 6 minutes apart, they're talking to each other. A lot of people don't have masks on, they're not cleaning their hands. There are so many things. I was like, why? You don't need to have this in. If you just had that there was a governor, or there was like an official, he's re-electing, and basically the sheriff is a good guy, but he's down on his luck, and he doesn't stick up for himself, and he decides to get one over and to basically run against him, and then stuff happens. I would have probably really enjoyed that you know, there was one funny scene in it where this young white lad is talking about Black Lives Matter and how, like, we slavery and stuff like this, and the dad scolds him in a very silly way, and there was laughter for that. But then just getting absurd of using machine guns and shooting people and blowing limbs off and stuff like this, and people getting stabbed in the head, and then even how it ended, I was just like, I don't know how somebody came up with this idea. A studio went, yeah, this sounds like a good idea, and put it out. I mean, don't get me wrong, how it is shot for the most part looks really good. The camera footage stuff and it drops on the side and it's a bit of a pain. The acting is done well. It is just the story to me. There is a story there, but it's such chaotic, and they've tried to bring in so many elements that I don't think people would really want. You know, we don't want. COVID is there. COVID has done a lot of damage to this world. As long as we are still, you know, having the vaccines and stuff like that's great. I don't think it's a subject that people really need to revisit. For one, Black Lives Matter. Yes, it was a horrible thing to done, but then this is such featured in it just for an excuse for people to kind of riot, which causes issues to the main character. Seems a bit tasteless to me. Then having kind of people that get in, or paedophilia and stuff, elements of this, but then there's no conclusion to that. It just kind of, it just gives an excuse for a character to go a different way, which these characters didn't really need to be in the story. And yeah, and overall it was just like, by the end of it I was like, what have I watched? And I was just like, I went in blind, and maybe that was my own fault. Maybe the trailer does reveal more of it and I've not noticed it. But that is my reviews. Have you seen Eddington? Yeah, probably one of the worst movies I feel I've seen this year. But what's your thoughts and feelings? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're here and you've kept to this review and you do enjoy my views and stuff, please do feel free to click that subscribe button. Most people watching this video aren't subscribed, so I do appreciate it. And otherwise, I shall definitely see you in the next one.